What's up, Ego Hackers? Welcome to the C.S. Joseph Podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing SI users and their friends, but more specifically, SI inferiors and their friends. So, when is it exactly appropriate? When is it appropriate to have introverted sensing people, or introverted sensing inferiors especially, to get rid of their friends, reject their friends, or keep their friends, keep them forever? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I guess that's why the question is being asked ultimately. The thing is that, it just amazes to me, how people are either hyper aware or completely unaware of how introverted sensing as a cognitive function basically has no, it's always constantly stuck in its comfort zone. It's very risk averse. And I imagine that would be the same when it comes to, people's relationships and when it comes to their friendships, right? Friendships are very interesting. Thing is though, introverted sensing is such a mysterious function because it's attached to the most mysterious function, which is extrovert intuition. So it's always SI and E in axis. And while it very much enjoys the familiar, it also has to have a healthy relationship with the unknown. The unknown is super important, consistently. Because if it's not really aware, if it's not really engaging in the unknown, then it will be consistently left behind, as a function, and then it will not develop, it will not gain enough life experience. So yeah, one can easily make the argument that it's hey, if you always have the same friends around all the time, you're stuck in your comfort zone, and that must mean you're not exactly growing as a person, right? And, that's a very basic argument that could be made by just anyone, and it's usually Wayfarer types who are making that argument to an SI user, or in particular an SI inferior like myself, or an ENFP, ENTP or an ENTP type, as a result. So, based on that, it's okay, what do I do then? But is it okay? Is it good to have most familiar friends that you can have relationships for potentially decades? I'd say so. See, that's the thing. I know recently, Andrew Tate was just removed, from social media and whatnot, and shut down Hustlers University, accused of being a human trafficker and all this other stuff. But one of the things he said that really spoke to me is he's always talking about how your circle of friends, especially as a man, it really matters, because if you're around high quality, high value men, you yourself will either become high value and high quality, that is if they don't kick you out, or you'll increase their quality, right? Because that's just kind of how men are, when women get together, women talk. That's why they have stitch and bitch, but when men get together, men do. They're always doing something. And because men are doing, it's always to increase a skill of some kind. If you've noticed, it's always something skill based, and you could always attribute to whatever men are doing as a group to some kind of skill. It could be something as simple as Magic the Gathering, where they're actually just improving their intuitive capabilities, their strategic capabilities, their tactical capabilities, during this game that's actually a lot harder than chess. A lot of people don't realize that, but Magic the Gathering is definitely far more complex and far more difficult than chess, especially when you're playing commander format, because it's you're having 4 different chessboards at the same time. All of those chessboards can interact with one another, and each person, goes one at a time in a clockwise motion, and you just don't know what's going to happen. You're constantly outside of your comfort zone, right? And, being out of your comfort zone, that really matters. That it really goes pretty far, as a result of that. That's the thing, though, I personally think it's very important that, an introverted sensor, especially an SI inferior, actually holds on to their friends, provided they're actually real friends that actually benefit you, friends that don't just take advantage of you, friends that aren't just, transactional, The golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. For me, I'd like my friends to be loyal. I'd like them to stick around even when I fail. I like them to be able to challenge me and call me out and criticize me when necessary. Also to have my back, or, at a moment's notice, drop everything they're doing and be there for me. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that point of view or that perspective, right? The thing is, though, is that oftentimes, I personally have been accused of being stuck in my comfort zone because I won't change my friends. But that's the thing, I think it's wiser to just add to your friend crew instead of just take away, per se. Unless, of course, that person's being abusive or they're a curse in your life, right? INTJ is often asked, well, how do I manage my friends? How do I know if I should reject a friend or not? And I tell them, look, you need to look at, your friends from a perspective of an investment portfolio, right? Are you getting return on your investment, or are you not getting return on investment? That's one of the most, that's the easiest litmus test, at least for an extroverted thinker. Is you look at your friends like investments, and are they a curse or a blessing on your life? Are you getting more out of it than what you're putting into it, or are you getting less out of it than what you're putting into it? And if it's less, well, that's what it is to be a curse, right? That's a cursed friendship, that's a cursed relationship. Definitely cut them away. But from a TIFE user standpoint, it's definitely something similar. Problem is, we don't really necessarily see it in terms of investment. We kind of see it in the perspective of trading favors, or at least favors. And, are we as FE users being given favors? Is our friends doing us favors in as much as we are doing favors for them? And if we're doing more favors for them than they are for us, well, then that's technically an abusive relationship. We should probably move on, and that's the thing, that's when you're an SI user, you can be really stuck, doing favors for other people, and they don't do you many favors during the few times that you actually need help, because, with you introverted sensing, your life experience collects over time. And if you're a Crusader type, you don't often ask for help on top of, Crusader type like ENTP. You don't often ask for help on top of having a lot of your stored up life experience, so that when you've solved problems in the past, you can solve them again when they come up again, right? You don't have to completely rebuild the goose every time, or rebuild the building every time you face the same problem like an extroverted sensor is at risk of doing. So you don't often ask for help. You don't often need assistance from other people to get what you're going for, to get what you're looking for. And I understand that. I totally get that. But the reality of the situation is that, everyone eventually needs help eventually. When you're an extroverted feeler, it's all about favors, so you need to make sure that, especially if you're a Crusader, stop yourself from offering to do favors to other people, because then you're at risk of covert contracting them and getting super bitter at them at the same time. You don't want that to happen. I know I've had that happen to me many times throughout my life, and that is definitely not a direction I want to go in or be a part of, literally. So keep that in mind. It's one of the more challenges when it comes to friendships, Now, but let's talk about familiarity. Introverted sensors, they can't even really have friendships with other people until they have some semblance of familiarity, or at least potential for familiarity. It's not like SE users, where some SE users demand immediate familiarity, or they'll have nothing to do with familiarity, but then it's an extremely shallow perspective. So SE users are kind of the extremes. They demand all of the familiarity up front, or they'll have no familiarity at all and then just keep it, shallow. And they even have sexual relationships from that perspective, especially INFJs and ESTPs. They can get super shallow with their sexual relationships as a result, and that's really frustrating. So what is an SI inferior to do? What is an SI user to do? Literally, what you got to do is that, you got to recognize that there is a risk of being stuck in your comfort zone. But the thing is that if they're doing favors, or you're getting good return on investment from your friends, why not keep them? If it's really that big of a deal, how about you just add to your friend circle? There's a study saying that human beings start losing track of people when they're about 120 plus people. So maybe 130. So if that's the case, and before they start breaking off into their own groups, right? So if that's the case, aim to have your friends to be around like 100 friends, for example, and make sure that they're all high quality people, high quality women, high quality men, depending on your gender. And then just invest or do favors or get investment from those people and just add to that group. Afterwards, they're probably going to break off into some other group somehow and then just kind of go in that direction. And that's okay. It's not exactly that. It's not like you're losing friends per se. It's just it's really hard for everyone to maintain relationships in that perspective. But yeah, gain familiarity with them. Add them to your comfort zone. Heavily invest in them because it's going to pay off dividends for you later in life, far later in life. Like, what if, like, all of a sudden, you get stabbed? You think your family's going to be there for you? You think your woman is going to be there for you? No, your bros are going to be there for you. Andrew Tate said that, for example, and I agree with that. It's like, that's who's really going to be for you. Like, that's what the family you choose is all about, not necessarily the family you inherit. And even then, like, you can't even really, like, as a man, you can't even put really much stock into your woman either to actually be there for you. Like, but your bros will be there for you. So you want to make sure that you're investing and favoring properly, giving favor or giving investment to the proper people, and they're giving you favor and giving you investment as a result. You got to understand, like, there's this, trade going there. And if you're getting more out of it than what you're putting in, that's a blessing. But you've got to make sure that you yourself are not becoming a curse to these people either. Like, that's also your responsibility. Don't be a curse to these people. But, variety is the spice of life, so it's important that, eventually when your friends crew or friends group reaches a certain size, that you have an aspect of churn, and you churn new friends in and phase other friends out as you're determining who is giving you the investment and the favoring and who you're investing in and favoring, and, like, are you getting returns from that, You got to have a healthy churn because, like, for example, if there is no churn, if the river stops flowing, then everything dies, and then you won't have any friends, basically, because you yourself are not growing. This is like the river of life. This is oftentimes why, for example, the Bible compares people or crowds of people or the entire crowd of people on the planet as like water or a great sea, a sea of people. You know what I'm saying? So understand un mar de gente. So, like, that's how it works, and that's what you got to do, Don't get caught up in the whole, I need to have a consistent new amount of friends. No, it's more of like you need a churn of friends. Yeah, allow yourself to get familiar with people, but at the same time, make sure you're doing the dance of the unfamiliar and having unfamiliar people be potential friends at the same time. And it's not necessarily just keep it in balance. I'm not saying that. I'm saying keep the churn rate up. It's important to have churn. Churn also helps you, especially if you're an SI user, test loyalty in a healthy way because we lack extroverted sensing because we're SI users. So it's really hard for us to do loyalty checks. And keeping that churn allows us to do what I call trust checks, which is what ENTPs do more than the other SI users. But still, SI users need to have trust checks. It's like, hey, I've been reliable for you, but are you reliable for me? That's healthy. That's normal. So anyway, folks, I think that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.